Welcome to the Feminine Thriving podcast, brought to you by the Jade Temple, the sisterhood devoted to the wisdom and pleasure of the female body.
We are your hosts, Tamara Klemick and Hilary Kimball, and we are excited to journey with you as we share all about how to move from surviving to thriving in a female body. Thriving for us means you feel a sense of safety in your own body, that you are dripping with sensuality and aliveness, that you're experiencing pleasure and orgasms that connect you to your own divinity, and you feel confident, powerful, and abundant walking this planet with a badass community of sisters by your side. Oh, and we welcome the mess, the mud, the chaos, and embrace all that it is to be a woman.
There will be solo episodes, episodes with both of us, and episodes with other smart, wise, funny, and sexy women, and maybe even men, to share their embodied wisdom with us. We acknowledge our sharing on this podcast comes from the experiences and viewpoints of us, two white, middle-class, cisgendered women. If we ever say anything that causes harm to you or your experience on the planet, please share with us so that we can continue to grow, learn, and bring new perspectives also to this space.
So, without further ado, let's drop into today's juicy episode. So, hello. Welcome everyone back to the Feminine Thriving podcast. I am sitting here today with two of my very, very dear sisters, Knina and Safe. These beautiful women are sisters of mine here on the island. And we've been journeying through life together for maybe a couple of years, in and out. And actually, most recently, we did a Yoni initiation retreat together, which was incredible. They were both supporting and participating fully in the retreat. And I'm really excited to have them here today because they're wise, smart, embodied, beautiful women. And they are also both Thai sisters. And for both of these reasons, it's really a beautiful privilege to have them here and share perspectives on what it is to be feminine thriving, what that means. And also we're going to open the lens a little bit on sexuality and culture. And I think it's important to recognize that it's, I think, an even deeper, more profound journey from certain cultures in the world. So to see you both so expressed and walking this path, for me is like extra inspiring, and I really bow down to both of you. Thank you for being here. So a very quick intro of who these queens are. So Knina is an organizer and facilitator of retreats, the Wild Awake retreats, and super beautiful, bringing brothers and sisters, people from all around Thailand and maybe internationally as well, to this amazing, to this beautiful island, and offering them a really, really holistic experience of what we have to offer on this beautiful island. Incredible. Welcome.
What an intro.
Anything else you want to add about your
you
gifts?
It.
Amazing. And Safe is a breathwork facilitator, incredible breathwork facilitator. She's been doing a lot of sessions in Bangkok as well as here on the island. And she's also a retreat manager for Dragonfly 360. Yes, amazing. Do you want to share anything more about that?
It's a new corporate wellness project targeting leaders, entrepreneurs, manager level, to how to lead well. So combining this idea of like leadership training and wellness.
Yummy.
Yeah.
Amazing. Powerful. Super beautiful. So thank you both for being here. I love you.
Yes.
So I'm going to offer for all of us just to take a few deep breaths. Anyone who's listening to this as well, just so we can land in space together. belly. And one more big deep breath. Power of breath. Yeah. So as we're like sort of starting, I'm aware that like sometimes podcasting is already a thing when you're chatting to someone, and I'm realizing with two people it's like maybe even harder for you guys as well, like when to come in and when to speak. So I might even like sort of direct questions to you one at a time, but feel free to flow in and out. But this is the first time I'm doing it with two other people. There's a new So I would just love to ask both of you individually. I start whenever I'm with a guest on the podcast with what is feminine thriving to you? What comes to you? And it doesn't need to be a solid answer, but just as I say those words, feminine thriving, what comes up for you? So, Knina, maybe you want to start.
Yeah, definitely. For me, feminine thriving, the first word that came to my mind when you had asked this question was how we can live cyclically in as much of our nature as possible. I've been really diving into a lot of menstrual cycle work around our periods, but also around this us as hormonal beings and how we are constantly shifting and changing. I feel like when we thrive the most is when we're able to kind of hold this entire experience and these changes, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually through our cycle, through our innate God-given gift of bringing birth and death into this world. Yeah, that's what feminine thriving means for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
For me, feminine thriving means that we are connected to our inner wisdom, like body, this temple, the power that of the feminine energy, of flowing, of being vulnerable and connected to our emotions, and knowing that these things are knowledge and wisdom and power that we can connect and use in our life, as opposed to something that is sometimes seen as weaknesses. And I think it's this realization and connection to that, and bringing that into the world and seeing that, wow, like the ability to be vulnerable and emotional and intuitive is power. Using that to navigate life.
Amazing. Super beautiful. Wow. I love both of those answers, of course. Yeah, for me, they're definitely, they're big areas, the two big keys. And I'm curious for both of you, you might be able to share, where you were in relation to both of those things. Maybe before you really started your journey, what was your experience, for example, Knina, and connecting to your menstrual cycle or living cyclically, or your relationship to your blood or any of that before? How was it?
Yeah, it's wow, it goes back so deeply, and I'm really grateful that this conversation has recently come up where I could really reflect where I started from. And I remember when I first even when I first got my period, it was I was at a point where there's just no guidance in what to do, how to navigate it. I remember a moment in not high school, middle school. I got it around 12 years old, and I was the last one in my friendship group to get my period. So at that point, I already knew, okay, this is just what you do. And actually, we reached for a tampon before we even reached for a pad. It was just a norm, but obviously we didn't go into much detail about it. So I remember when I got my first bleed and I reached for my tampon, I inserted it with the plastic on.
Wow.
Like I had no idea, and like it wasn't until much later, and it was like hurting and chafing inside that like I opened up to one of my closest friends at that moment. She obviously had the look that you guys have on your face right now. And like that was such a crucial moment of like, I'm just like, wow, I wish there was more guidance or talk even before you got your period, like that this was how it's gonna be and what it's gonna be like. So I think from that point on, like many other women that I've heard share, my period was something that was inconvenient. And when we talked about menstrual cycle, it was only about the period. It wasn't really the whole month of what you're going through. And, you know, having those days before you get your period where you think like the whole world is collapsing and you're going crazy and you're like lashing out at your loved ones for no reason at all. And really believing, like, I think I really ingrained this belief for so long that women were crazy. Like there's a hysteria that we experience and it was irrational. That was like what was the most powerful, that like I couldn't understand myself and why I was feeling these things when the rest of the time like all life was going good, and then it will hit you like a truck that this is what was happening. And I think that for me, like it felt the most potent when I finally stepped into this work, and our dear sister Jamie was talking about it on the island. I was exposed to this work and this understanding of like, this is what we experience. And also there's so much wisdom and power in this constant questioning of where we are in our life and what around us is working and what's not. The shedding that can come from that is so powerful every month. It's been a huge, long journey, but I'm so, so grateful to be here at this moment. Yeah. And I'm so grateful for this island that allows such ease in our ability to live cyclically, whereas I remember and I give so much compassion to who I was before, living in the city or in environments that just didn't support or see the importance or had structures in place to support us being a woman that thrives in the world. Yeah, it's being cyclical.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have lots of memories of popping the pills and going to work and being in like super intense meetings and just feeling like I was going to pass out and just, I was sharing with both of you before. I was started bleeding on Saturday and had to push through a little bit of discomfort, but just the fact that even for me, I'm like, see it as such a privilege that I can map my work as much as possible around my bleed, and I can mostly take days to rest. And if I don't get that rest on my bleeding days, it actually really affects the rest of my month. It's a very big privilege. Yeah, the world really isn't set up to support that, hey?
No.
I'm thinking of your response, and I'm being remembered that my first like workshop or like retreat after my yoga teacher training when I moved here 2 years ago was Jamie's course actually, and I realized that like I'm remembering that like back then I was so in shock by like the information that was like presented in front of me, and I was just like, what the fuck, like. Why am I just knowing this now, like learning about this now? Like I was so angry and shocked and like, wow, like it like really hit me in the face, because like growing up in the city, like living in the city, it's very masculine. And I was really conditioned and like was living in that state, you know, of like, okay, I have to like achieve grade A 4.0. I have to like, you know, be like the best in class. My school, my university motto was be the best always. That was always great. Yeah, always. Actually, like throughout the 4 years of uni, was like be the best always, be the best always, be the best always. Wow. You know, and like, yeah, and we were like, and going like applying to like for work, like it was like, you know, just being at the top and like achieving and producing and go. And then I was, you know, going through like my burnout phase from doing 2 years of that. I moved here, and that's when I really connected to my feminine energy. And this island, you know, the energy, the flow, the ease, really brought that up. Like, was a really conducive environment for that. And ever since then, I'm not saying that I'm like more balanced now, or like I'm more, but I'm more into my feminine now. I'm connecting more to my body, and I think maybe unlike you before, you know, you were experiencing a lot of like period pain, but I wasn't. Like I never had like pain at all, and my cycle was always like off. It was like irregular, and I thought like something was wrong with me. I didn't have any of this knowledge of like, oh, maybe I'm stressed. Maybe I'm like working out too much and pushing my body. Maybe I'm not eating enough. Not knowing anything, but then from connecting to my body now, it's so much clearer. Like there's so much more information that like, oh wow, like I'm having like this really bad stomach ache, probably because I'm stressed about like ABC, and it's just this wisdom that I'm really like appreciating more and softening into, and much more into it. Otherwise, I'll just be like pushing through it and numbing myself and neglecting my makes me angry.
Yeah, and that might actually like it does thread into like the where you were, like when you were sharing about what feminine thriving is to you, so much about connecting to that body wisdom, and the even the feelings and emotions and all of the different things that are happening as like wisdom for us. So is there anything else you want to share about your before having access to this?
Before, I mean, it was just like I didn't listen to my body. Like I didn't have the tools. Like I didn't know what to look for, or like what these things mean, and it was just lack of knowledge. You know, now having more tools to understand like the breath and like, you know, connecting with like the sensations and the yoni, and how if you just like drop in and listen, there's just so much information there that so valuable to use and to guide. And also knowing that I'm actually a very intuitive person. I didn't know that before. And, you know, like using your intuition or your gut feeling to make decisions, it's always, it's sometimes it's like frowned upon. It's like, I don't really know like why I'm making the decision, but it feels right. You know, when I left my job, like it feels right, like to do it, even though like everybody else was saying like, why are you leaving a stable job to go live on an island? What are you gonna do? You know, but it just felt right, and it was the best decision I've made for myself, and that was the only explanation I can give, is that felt yes, like a full fuck yes,
Full body yes,
full body yes,
Full body yes.
yeah,
amazing. Yeah, and I think that's, you know, you talk about like being an intuitive person, and of course some of us are tapped into that even more, but like I think innately we're all intuitive beings. We have this wisdom that exists, and we get programmed to just rely on one. We have many different types of wisdom that exist in our bodies. We're so programmed to only look and listen to or explore the cognitive, the mind, and the rational and the logical, and there's so much in the mind that is fear-based and that is looking for the things that will go wrong. And like when we can actually, and it's not about, for me, like dismissing the mind and the logic and the rational, but bringing in and incorporating all the other types of wisdom that exist within us. Of course, the body wisdom being, like in my experience, the greatest wisdom and the greatest access to what's right. This intuitive hits, these like, I don't know, like I don't know why, but I've just got to do this thing. And whenever I follow that, magic
Yeah.
Without
unfolds.
fail,
every
time.
Yeah. I don't know why I feel to tell this story, particularly because it's not a happy ending, but it was a happy story at the time. But like when I met Toma, my ex-husband, the day that I met him, I was actually on the island as a tourist, or I was like a long-term visitor. But I was going through the morning schedule of all the different events that are happening that used to be on an app. And I was going to an ecstatic dance at Pyramid, which was like religious. I would go every twice a week. And then there was this workshop, and it was about boundaries and something else. And it wasn't even like super interesting to me, or something that I felt like I'd done quite a lot of boundaries work already. So it wasn't like, oh, I need to go and do this thing. But there was something inside me that it was like, you need to go. And I ended up leaving ecstatic dance early, which I never do. I used to be like the last one laying on the ground, swimming in the magic of ecstatic. And I left early, and I was even riding my scooter to this other workshop. And it was almost like my soul was like dragging me forward. And my mind was like, why am I going to this workshop? Like, I have no idea. And I even nearly left like halfway through, and then like someone spoke to me and was chatting to me, and then it sort of started again. And so I ended up saying, and then that's when like this magical moment with Toma happened, and we ended up like kissing and in this workshop, and then like flowing into a very big, amazing, beautiful, romantic love story. With a not so happy ending, but anyway,
It doesn't
it was meant to be, and it was a beautiful story, and I'm super grateful for it. And it was exactly that. It was so deeply intuitive, and even my rational brain was just like, I have no idea why I'm doing this, but the pull is so hard that I'm going. Yeah, and I'm going to find out why I need to be in this workshop, and then boom,
it makes sense.
Yeah, amazing. So I would love to get a little bit more into the topic also of sexuality. That would, feel good for you both. And yeah, there's no right or wrong, and there's nowhere we have to go, and we don't need to get into any personal stories that you don't feel comfortable with. But I guess as we're sort of like doing almost a before and after, and the things that we've already talked about, maybe you could just share a little bit on what it was like for you in your household, in your experience. Like, what was the topic of sexuality like? Like, was it spoken, not spoken? Was it even? I love to also. I mean, is it something that people was super taboo or shameful, or your parents did or didn't have sex in the house, or you don't need to go into like anything that doesn't feel comfortable, but just to share any perspective on sexuality then, and then we'll talk about the now.
For me, it was very suppressed at home. It was very suppressed at home. We never spoke about sex or anything like that. I don't remember any conversation with my parents. But I went to an international school, which was very liberal, in Thailand. And I was very like exposed to like the party scene and all of that. Like, and I can say like I grew up like really quickly, so to say. And I felt like I was quite like liberal in that space at school, and like in the social scene, high school, and but there wasn't much like support for that. It was more kind of like through experience, like hooking up and like having fun and like dance clubs and like things like that. But there were a lot of also like stories of like rape and like drug and things like that, and remembering that like we had to just navigate it, and not knowing that there was any kind of like structure or support or education around that, so to say. Like, so that was my relationship with like sexuality growing up, but at home, non-existent.
Mm-hmm. And in that like scenario that you share about like more into the teenage years and hearing these like stories, so did you relate sexuality to danger, or like it was
Yeah, like there was always like fear there, like fear attached to it. And especially like Bangkok being such a big like party capital. And like going out and partying, there was always like a fear of like, like being groped on, or like rape, or I don't know, like something bad happening. So it was always like that fear there, and I also like was pretty wild and liberal, and in terms of like hooking up and like having one night stands and things like that. Feeling myself like a little nervous, like expressing that.
Feel free to take a breath and
like I was having like one night stands, and I felt like I was very liberal in like my sexual life, but it was very frowned upon, like, and looked down upon by like my friends, and like, oh, you're so like slutty. So there was always like this energy and feeling like I couldn't express myself sexually because of that, because it was looked down as like, oh, I'm being slutty, I'm expressing my sexual needs.
And can I ask, like, with the one night stands, like this word slutty, which is just so complex to deconstruct, but how did you feel about yourself after these experiences? Not great.
Not great. I felt like I was almost like disconnected from it. Like there was this part of me where I was like, oh, I want to. I want to have sex. I want to explore and like allow this like sexual need to be expressed, and like I'm having so much fun. But at the same time, there's this like whole structure behind me, like friends and family and culture, that's like, this is so slutty. This is not what you're supposed to do. This is not what a good Thai woman is supposed to do. And like barely any of my friends were kind of like exploring that. So I felt like this isn't a part of me that isn't really allowed. Like there was always like conflict there to like, I want to, but then I can't. So conflicting parts there, which realizing that after, like it really like suppressed me even more years after, like not being scared to express my sexual needs.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I relate a lot. I think that this is such a fundamental like split in humanity. There's so many cultures and religions, and all of our programming is somehow that sex is shameful and wrong, but it's an innate need and drive within us as animals, like literally a drive. And so at the core, the message is that we are wrong, like we are innately wrong. And until we can like really like rebalance this, or to like integrate the fact that we are sexual beings and that the way we want to express it, and for each of us is different, and at different chapters and different stages of our lives, in relationship, out of relationship, in different times of our cycle, whatever it is, when we can really integrate that we are sexual beings and release that shame, for me that is like one of the biggest keys of liberation, of us feeling whole and integrated, and like being able to just love ourselves deeply and wholly and fully, because whilst we fundamentally feel like we're wrong at our core for our sexuality. It's like, thank you for sharing vulnerably. And what about you, love? Anything you were feeling to share on this topic?
Wow, so much. As you were speaking, I was like really having to hold myself back to like jump in, like, oh my god, I resonate with that. Oh my god, I resonate with that too. Yeah, there was a lot coming up, but I had a thought just now as you were speaking on like integrating our whole sexual being, of this concept of our religion and of Buddhism being, our country's philosophy, and it's really ingrained. And I love Buddhism, and like it's really a big part of my life. Yet the one thing that I feel that it misses is talking about this sexual energy and talking about how we can work with it, how we can manage it, because it's so there. But as far as my experience has been in practicing Buddhism and living a Buddhist life, is that it's just kind of like a missing piece, or just kind of ignored altogether in the religion. Even when I was learning Vipassana meditation and all these things, that through our guidance, I was never guided to come feel sensation at the tips of our nipples or at our yoni. Like it's just like a forgotten part, that's just like washed over. And so I felt like, especially when we were in the Yoni initiation, this was like one of the insights that I really got, that the meaning of like doing this work makes you feel whole, like really made sense to me. It was like, wow, like when I go into meditations now, like I sit in it and I feel, when I scan my body, and that includes my breasts and my yoni, I feel whole. Like this is what it's supposed to feel like. Yeah. And like you'd never really know what you don't know until you know it. And then you're like, right, okay. And so, yeah, this is like just something that came up in terms of like, our Buddhist practices, and something that Tantra really filled in for me when I got to this island. How to really work with this energy that's so powerful, but has been so shamed for so long, and or just ignored, really. Suppressed. Yeah, just completely suppressed. And I don't know if you've seen the recent like Netflix series. There's been a big one that has been produced in Thailand. It's called Blessings. And in this, like, there's a scene where the monk in the series actually starts to feel attraction towards this woman that's in the series, and you see his process of going through that, even as a monk, being super dedicated. And in the series, he's like one of the good monks, really practicing in the forest, like really devoted to his practice. And you see his challenge and his conflict about these feelings that are coming up for him that are so strong, and he doesn't know how to navigate it either, because I feel there is a lack of guidance within the Buddhist teachings on how to work with our sexual energy, and actually not even to work with it, to, as you say, to suppress it altogether and just like act like it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's super interesting and beautiful, and thank you for like bringing Buddhism into the conversation, because it's such a fabric of Thailand. Like you said, it's not just it's not some separate thing, like maybe, let's say, in the US you've got Christianity and in different religions. Buddhism is like a way of life, and it is like such a integrated part of Thai culture and Thai, just this land and these people, your people. And so I'm curious, because I grew up in a Christian family where sexuality is explicitly called out as being wrong and sinful, particularly unless in marriage, of course. And so what I'm hearing from you is that in Buddhism, in the way that you've learnt and experienced it, it's just not spoken about at all.
Like not completely really. In the shadow.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. The main emphasis is just about detachment. And so what I would get was like, okay, detach from this also. like detach, like don't attach to any of this feelings, this attraction, this pull to someone, to anything really. So yeah, it is, from my experience, that's always been the case.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Anita, who I teach with often for Yoni initiation, she always says that's like, for her, when she found Tantra and Taoism, it was like the first time that she could be both spiritual and sexual, like both holy and sexual, and it was like the integration of this, and that's why these two pathways, or these two paths, are so powerful in terms of what we're talking about, this fullness, this wholeness, this accepting this whole being that we are, because they talk so much about sexuality, sexual energy, and that seeing sex also as something sacred and that can actually help us attain enlightenment, if that's the end goal, which for many people, or for some people, it is. I'm not sure I'm on the enlightenment path, but I like the concept, and I have experienced incredibly powerful spiritual experiences in sexuality, and it's so beautiful.
I feel like we're all going in the direction.
Who
knows if we'll reach that in this lifetime.
I'm like, cool, that way, that's good. Nice. Amazing. And is there anything else that comes to mind? Like, we're talking about Buddhism now. There are so many things that I have around questions, even that I have around unpacking the beliefs and cultural perspective on sexuality in Thailand. And I think we've even had some brief conversations. I know we have Safe. We didn't go too deep into it, but even this, the world is full of contradiction. Each one of us is individuals, and every culture and everything. And there are many in Thai culture as well. And one of them is around this sort of lens of sexuality. And I'll say it as an outsider, this sort of deep acceptance of, there's so much around sex tourism, and I'm not sure that I even think around ladyboys as being a deeply it's connected somehow to sexuality, but not necessarily directly. But even this acceptance of ladyboys and gender open-mindedness and all of this, and then there is this very conservative part of Thai culture, particularly when it comes to sexuality as well. So I would love if you feel just to riff on what comes up around this topic.
I love unpacking this topic. Like, I have such a deep curiosity as to how our culture has evolved to be what it is now. In terms of of sexuality, we can touch a little. I'd love to touch a little bit on ladyboys, and I think it pertains to what we were just speaking about, in Buddhism. And what I recently had found out actually was that in old Buddhist scriptures, traditional Buddhist scriptures, there's actually, they state that there's 3 genders. There is a male, a female, and a transgender, already within our Buddhist scriptures. And I feel as a basis, that has always been, I think, the acceptance of this, of these 3 genders as being not just black and white, not just male and female, but there being a 3rd gender, and it's kind of blended and been kept alive within our culture. And that's what makes, I think, Thailand so different in terms of how we see. Is the 3rd sex offensive, or is I still don't really know the lingo bit around it.
Maybe just a non-binary.
The non-binary. Exactly. And it's just so interesting that in Buddhist scripture that this exists, but at the same time, in the same breath, that we're only just now working to legalize gay marriage and all these stuff. So our laws don't really reflect the norm or the culture that Thai people see on this topic. So.
I think gay marriage was just passed a few months ago, right?
In its first stages. But we're totally celebrating that. But in the same breath, I'm how has that not been legalized before? We have such an open mind as a species, not species, as a culture towards this. Yeah, it's only just been legalized. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's actually shocking. I think we can get also like a little delusional on like progress when we just look at certain countries, but if we actually like zoom back of progress in the world for many different discriminations, you know, whether it be like even for women's rights and for gay rights, like actually when we zoom out and look at the world, there's still a long way to go, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And what I also realized actually from my research was that statistically, obviously, they do say that it is quite dodgy and you can't really rely on it, but they say that in Thailand, like the population is around 1 to 3% that are non-binary, and that is on par with most averages in the entire world. But the interesting thing is, like, it seems so much bigger here because it's so much more accepted or open, and yes, with touching on like the sex tourism piece, like it is partly because of that. People have always come like in the same breath of going to Thailand. It's like, oh, it's gonna go see some lady boys and go to Miss Tiffany shows, and it's like, you know, it's always like intertwined together. Yeah. So I find that really interesting. Yeah.
Me, what's like really, you know, like this question always sparks for me, like of the like the polarity between the conservative and like the liberal, of, you know, having such like a close and parallel relationship, like almost of like Buddhism, like the Buddhist path, like the conservative path, traditional path, as well as like the very liberal. You know, it I feel like it doesn't really meet. There's like this parallel line where, you know, it's so openly discussed and like seen and visible in terms of like, you know, the sex tourism and like gays and like trans, but like it's never an open discussion. I feel like it's never like integrated, for example. Like so, and it's also like a question for me as well, you know, where like trying to navigate and understand like the essence of why, like let's say like my parents like generation, for example, like we don't really talk and discuss about, you know, gay marriage or like Pride Month or like sex tourism, but like they are aware of it. So it's almost like this culture of like, I don't know, like it doesn't integrate somehow for me, you know. You feel that way? Yeah.
I also think there's so many ways. What I recently found out is that in Thai, there's so many words to describe, like our gender spectrum is so big that there's so many ways that you can actually identify like your gender in. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like you have like women that are super masculine and date other women, but they don't call themselves like Tom. They call themselves Tom, but they also want to be referred to as she and not he. Do you know what I mean? Or there's like, and then the other girl in that equation will be called something else as well. Like she's very feminine, but is dating a masculine woman, and that will be another name.
Yeah. That is true.
Yeah. It's so fascinating that our gender, like
it's like all different connotation and like meaning context behind it.
Slight nuances.
Slight nuances.
Amazing.
Yeah, but it's actually like the younger generation, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. But it's interesting.
But it is interesting
that you can have such nuance, and then I wonder whether like it's because the language allows for so much variant in how you want to identify, either sexually or even in your gender yourself, like that it leads to like not so much even gender reassignment either. Like they don't necessarily have to go so far as like getting surgery, but they can identify with different parts. And I've even met, when I've gone out in our party scenes, like gathoy, so like lady boys who I got into a conversation with, and he said, like, yeah, I enjoy this identity right now, but when I'm 40, I know I'll want to exist as a man. Like, I know I'll drop this and I'll go back to, living life as a man. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, why not? Like, why not? And like, I feel because it's such a fun, accepting culture that you're just like, yeah, you be what you want to be right now, and tomorrow you might wake up and feel completely different, and that's okay too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's Mark that works at one of the local coffee shops near us. I've had a chat to him because he was also a ladyboy when I first met him. And then he, or at least I got the maybe he wasn't like in a more extreme expression of it, but definitely that's the way I like perceived him. And then now he's very much, dressed and presenting, or again, the language, if there's anyone that's listening and we're insensitive to language, we're learning and doing our best.
Please let us know.
Feedback is welcome. But he, and I was chatting to him about it, and he said something like it was more complicated and more challenging to be a ladyboy here. And then I was just saying to him, I think you're like, isn't Kopangang like, pretty easy and open-minded? And then he said, no, this is where I want to be a man now. Like, this is where, and I was like, cool, as long as that, like, if it's what you want, rather than you're doing it to like fit in. And I mean, then cool. Like, it's and it was a really interesting conversation. Yeah. Cause it was, for me, it's a new terrain to navigate. Cause I've always felt like, actually, I have always felt like a girl or a woman, although I used to hate being a girl. I always felt like it was a weakness or a downside of being a girl and a woman. And I definitely went through some tomboy phases, but definitely had no confusion about what I was, even if I wasn't so thrilled about it. Yeah. Amazing. Such beautiful conversations. And I just want to share, because I'm sure many people that are listening are sisters that have either been through the Jade Temple on this beautiful island or are living here on the island. And I know that it's a very interesting conversation for everyone. I guess I would love to just keep riffing. If is there anything else that's coming to you that you're ready to jump in on, or you want to question?
For me, if we can backtrack a little about like my journey and my sexuality,
please,
because
perfect.
I found when you had asked that question, this like one memory coming up, that when I was growing up, like I didn't have my own bedroom. So I slept with my parents. And even though I have a very similar background as Safe, like I went to international school, it was very liberal, but yet at home, like we never actually talked about sex or losing your virginity or anything like that. But it was interesting because as I was growing up, sleeping in their bedroom, I would wake up sometimes and hear them. And like, it was this like, I think it really made me so intensely curious growing up that it really fed into like me like watching porn. I feel like reflecting like watching porn a little too early or like quite young, and just like having nowhere to kind of like satiate my curiosity. So I had to go out and find it myself. And like, I feel there was points or moments where I was developing a little bit of like an addiction or like just this like curiosity towards it. And I found like my siblings like pages and all of this stuff. Like I'm the youngest of all three, so there was definitely this like insatiable curiosity. And it was not until I didn't know how to feel about like waking up and hearing my parents like enjoy and stuff like that, so I never brought it up, but I felt like there was always this like conflict in me. I remember laughing at myself because I thought that I was getting like emotional because I felt like I made it mean that I wasn't enough, so that they were wanting like another child, because like the only story that I had, that you only had sex if you wanted to become pregnant. And so I remember like confronting my mom one time, like really nervous, really like shy, and being like, do you want another kid? Like, is that why? You know, like
Wow.
she was like, hell no. Like, she was like, hell no, I'm tired of just raising you three. Like, I'm fine, I'm good. And then that moment I was like, oh, like, thank God there was like this wave of relief. Okay, cool. Like, that's fine. And I think from that moment, also, she at one point was like wanting my sister to have like add on another bedroom to her floor, like her bedroom floor. And I was there in the conversation, but I was like really young, and I could just kind of hear them like arguing back and forth. My sister was obviously arguing against it. Like, she was like, no, like, I want my own space, I want my own freedom, blah, blah. And my mom, like, all of a sudden, I remember this moment so clearly. She was like, yes, Bob, but I want to have sex. Wow. so, and like from then on, my sisters went, okay.
Okay, do what you want.
Okay, yeah.
Just don't talk to me about having sex.
Exactly. It's like, all right, cool, done. Conversation's over. So that was like a really interesting thing where I felt, even though culturally in Thailand it's very seen as to be conservative, but I had all of these experiences that made me kind of like put pieces together that it was okay. And actually, I'm really grateful that my mother was so able to express, even though she was pushed to her limit of like, she had no more arguments to give my sister, and so this was the one that had to come up. Yeah. But I'm so grateful that she was able to just speak it clearly, like, this is her need, and she will fulfill it in this way. And so, yeah, I think that really fed into how I explored my sexuality moving forwards from there too, like, with other guys, with losing my virginity, like, I would say relatively quite early for my peers as well. But I felt like there was always this level of like, it's okay. It's okay to kind of feel and be curious by what's happening down there. Yeah.
Amazing. It's such an interesting thing, like parents having sex, right? Because I walked in, I think, a few times, and I'm like already like, oh my God, Mum or Dad's gonna listen to this. But I don't remember so many details, but I remember it being like a like shocking kind of thing, and it was almost, I maybe was even feeling angry, like, I don't know, that there was, I don't have such clear memories, but yeah, like when you're sharing a bedroom with your parents, like, yeah, I think that, you know, for each one of us individually, no matter which culture, there's going to be so many seeds planted in our programming based on our parents, whether they were sexual or not sexual, spoke about it, didn't spoke about it, whether we ever saw it or experienced it or not, and what we made it mean, like the fact that the only like information to piece together was that they were making another baby, you know.
Yeah.
Wow. What about your parents? Safe?
Yeah, you're walking on them.
I'm only joking.
Oh my God.
I'm only joking. You don't need to go there.
Don't want to save it for another time.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Boundaries. I like it.
Boundaries are sexy.
So, I think, yeah, it's been such a beautiful chat. I would love to just sort of close maybe with, maybe each of you could share just your experience from Yoni initiation. Just it's so much of the work that we do at the temple. It's such a foundational part of our work. And yeah, just to share any of the big shifts or insights, or just, yeah, before and after, how you were feeling, or anything that sort of came up in that. Beautiful seed for final shares as we get some Palo Santo. Thank you.
Oh, for me, it was just such a beautiful journey, space, nurturing experience of just like power and slowness and so much wisdom that I gained from that whole experience. Might not go into the details of the things that came up for me, but just reconnecting with my body and listening to her and giving her space, just that was already so powerful and so needed and so important. And just like the sisterhood was really beautiful in that space, like so intimate, and like we just all wanted to be together all the time, and having that support, knowing that you're not alone in the process, in the journey, because all the sharings, like you can feel each of the shares, like you can feel each and every one, and just knowing that knowing was just amazing to thank you for guiding us and leading that with full power. Yeah, really just grateful for the
Yeah. Yeah, I echo everything that Safe has shared. And for me, I feel like, wow, you really picked a great name. Because it really did feel like I've been initiated, and it's been like a couple of weeks since the Yoni initiation, maybe even a month or so.
Definitely
more than a month.
Yeah, it was in April.
Yeah. But even still, I feel like I'm still integrating and like letting the pieces land where they should, because everything was like, I was describing to my partner after I finished that it felt like we were in a snow globe, and like it was just like getting shaken, like my whole world was getting shaken, and it's taken this long and probably a bit longer for even like all the pieces to land. But what I really took from it was like, yeah, this reconnection to our wholeness of it, as I've spoken before, this like journey of hearing or connecting to my yoni even deeper than I thought was possible. And this work can be so confronting. Like it's, we have had so many years of and stories of like disconnecting to our bodies, to numbing, to the sexuality piece, the sensuality piece, all the shame, and for me, like there's like an embarrassment of even like sharing what we're doing as we're doing it that was coming up. But in the end, I look back at it with such fondness, because when you really boil down, like all we were doing is what our ancestors was probably doing as tribes anyways, like just coming together to be seen and be heard, to share stories, to sing together, to dance together topless, and it being the most liberating experience. I was at Ecstatic Dance last Friday, and I met one of our sisters, and I was like, oh, couldn't even barely recognize you there, like with your top on, like dancing. I need to see boobs. Yeah. Like in my mind, I was already filling in the complete picture, the vision of the future of us being able to like dance at Ecstatic with our tops off and it being completely normal. It's just so, this feeling of like, yes, this is what it's meant to be. There's some sadness that in this world we're not quite there yet to be able to do this, but also this feeling of empowerment of like, this tiny magical hut in Copenhagen that we can do this, and that is a start, and that is a very powerful start to this revolution. Viva la Volga! Viva la Volga!
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Feeling it so much. Thank you. And yeah, I guess I just want to like loop back for anyone who's listening. Like, I think all of these aspects that we're talking about, maybe you can't come to Yoni initiation, but the sisterhood, the membership that we've just launched, you know, all of these aspects of sisterhood and seeing and holding and listening to each other, of connecting to our bodies deeply and tapping into the wisdom of our bodies and integrating all parts of us, our yonis, our breasts, our womb, and being able to, just feel like we're reclaiming these entire bodies that we exist in, these female bodies, is all possible and totally available in our new membership. And I'm like so happy to share about it because I really believe so deeply in what we're creating there. Yeah. So, wow. I feel like I could keep going. But we are hitting the hour mark.
Wow! Oh my god, I went by so quickly.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, any closing remarks, anything you want to share with anyone who's listening, either about your own experience, this conversation, even a word of wisdom, or anything you want to close with?
I'm remembering my intention of going into the Yoni initiation. And I want to leave with that, remind all the listeners that remember that your power is within.
Oh,
I'm sad.
I just want to leave with the fact I'm so grateful for this work because I can really say that I fucking love being a woman, and I'm so grateful I was born a woman in this lifetime. Like, yes. So, and I don't think I could have said that a couple years ago. So I'm infinitely grateful.
I think that's such a magical way to end, because it is, I from, like I spoke about even being a girl and like feeling like it was the shitty option and the like less great way of experiencing life, and to now actually be like, oh my god, thank you. Thank you. So much wisdom, so much pleasure, so much power, so much emotion, and like I love my emotions now. I can swim in them and find the bliss in that. And to be honest, like, sisterhood is where it's at. Like, you know, just when we drop all of the bullshit and all of the competition and the comparison, and we actually just like come into, it's like every time I see you guys, it's like, I don't know, it's so much desire to help each other shine and to hold each other in what we're going through. And we have a thing on this island is full of beautiful, amazing, strong, powerful women, and I'm like, I think that's we really help each other shine. It's like one woman's light is not dimming each other's. It's like really we're helping each other like come back to our power. And I say it often in my classes as well. I really believe women connected to their power, which comes from within and comes from our connection to our bodies and our cycles and supporting each other, is the thing that's going to change the world. And it's needed, so needed right now. So needed. And I want to thank both of you for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your beings. Thank you for everything you are and the way you walk this planet, inspiring me and us. And you know, you are paving the way as well for many other Thai women to really come into their power the way that you both have. And I want to thank Thailand for being my home and welcoming me here, and also us, the Jade Temple. I always say, like, we're like in the grey area at the Jade Temple of what, like, you know, maybe considered like, I don't know, fully appropriate in this Thai culture. Yet I think because it's us working on our own bodies, and I do feel there is support for us in the community. And yeah, I love living here, and I love being able to, live my life in this beautiful land with these beautiful people. Thank you for everyone who's listening, and feedback and questions. We'll link the information for both of these queens and the show notes, so you can look up their work and come do retreats with them, come do breath work. And just sending you all so much love, and a final reminder to check out the Sisterhood, because we have our live opening call on Wednesday night. Super excited. And we have daily drops of embodiment, really short practices, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, journal prompts, Sisterhood, and 5 live classes per month if you join the Pleasure Path. So come play with us, come join the Sisterhood, and love you all so much.
Love showers,
Love shower. If you're watching on YouTube, love shower. Thank you for listening, sisters. We hope you're feeling expanded after being here with us. If you are, the best way you can support us on this journey of creating free content for this movement is to rate, review, or share this podcast. It would mean so much to us as we try and grow this sisterhood into a global revolution.
And if you want to hear all of our latest news, get free practices and tips, and learn about our offerings, sign up for our juicy emails at thejadetemple.com. Thank you so much, sisters. We love you and hope to see you soon.